M1911. Remember those Army troops facing Moro fighters during the Philippine-American War? Warriors kept charging forward, even after multiple .38 caliber revolver hits. The guns simply lacked stopping power, so Army ordnance officials knew they needed something bigger, something capable of dropping an attacker with 1 or 2 shots. That became the literal main requirement driving everything forward. So think about this for a second. Without modern engineering equipment for testing, how did they figure out which pistol could handle the job? Well, even back then, the military didn't just fire a few rounds and call it done. These pistols underwent absolute hell. Thousands of rounds tested for reliability. They dunked them in water, covered them in sand, kept shooting. Colt's .45 ACP pistol emerged as the winner because it demonstrated remarkable reliability without a single malfunction. March 1911 saw the Army formally adopt Colt's pistol as the Model 1911. This .45 caliber semi-automatic served with distinction through both world wars and beyond. Just to put things in perspective, they cost about $14 per unit initially, and the U.S. government procured around 2.7 million M1911 and A1 models throughout its service life. Unit prices varied over time, eventually reaching around $26 by 1938. Conservative estimates across all production suggest roughly 40 to 54 million in unadjusted historical dollars. Post-World War II, NATO standardization became a thing, leading to the program where the M9 was born. In 1980, the Department of Defense decided the U.S. should adopt a handgun chambered in 9 by 19 mm ammunition to align with Allied forces and replace the aging .45 caliber M1911s and .38 revolvers. This launched the Joint Service Small Arms Program trials in the 1980s, where all services collaborated on requirements for a new sidearm. The Army conducted extensive evaluations of candidate 9mm pistols in 1981 and again in 1984. Requirements included caliber standardization, firing 9 by 19mm NATO ammunition for alliance-wide logistics compatibility. Magazine capacity needed minimum 13-round detachable magazine, double stack, with drop-free operation. Reliability demanded no more than 8 malfunctions in 5,000 rounds during testing. The 1984 trials, often called the XM9 trials, saw entries from several manufacturers. Beretta's 92F and Sig Sauer's P226 emerged as finalists. But then, things got messy. Beretta offered the lowest package price and met requirements, so the Army awarded Beretta a contract in 1985 for 315,000 pistols. The weapon was adopted across all services as the M9 handgun, explicitly replacing all remaining .45 and .38 caliber handguns. First M9s were delivered in 1986, phasing out the M1911 after its long tenure. However, the M9 selection sparked controversy. Smith & Wesson and other bidders protested the 1984 trial results, alleging unfair elimination. A 1986 General Accounting Office investigation found that Army testers made a mistake in one of the reliability specifications, a metric to imperial conversion error that caused Smith & Wesson's pistol to be wrongly failed. Long story short, it didn't pass the service life or firing pin energy standards. Even though the Beretta contract moved forward, Congress grew concerned. In fiscal year 1987 defense appropriations, Congress directed the Army to conduct a new competition for additional 9mm pistols parallel to the existing Beretta contract. This second competition, the XM10 trials from 1987 to 1988, invited new submissions, giving rivals another chance to unseat Beretta. The XM10 retest confirmed Beretta's performance as satisfactory. Beretta's upgraded model, the 92FS, came out on top in 1988, and the Army chose to continue with Beretta for follow-on buys. The Beretta M9 remained the standard U.S. military sidearm, entering full service by the late 1980s. It brought the U.S. into line with NATO's 9mm standard and provided troops higher magazine capacity, 15 rounds versus the old 7-shot M1911. And think about this for a second. $75 million in one contract for the gun in the mid-80s. A few years later, already over $77 million. Then, in 2009, the government spends another $220 million on pistols. That's nearly $300 million taxpayer dollars on handguns from just 2 major contracts, over 500,000 pistols. And that doesn't even count decades of smaller orders, racking up even more. M11 Compact Service Pistol. The Department of Defense adopted the Sig Sauer P228 9mm as the M11 pistol in 1986 under the Joint Service Small Arms Program for select units alongside the M9. The M11 offered the same caliber and operating principles as the M9, but in a smaller, lighter package easier to conceal. Requirements specified shorter than the 8.5-inch M9 and roughly 25 to 30% lighter than the loaded M9. This made it well-suited for organizations like Army CID and Air Force Office of Special Investigations, whose agents often carried sidearms in discrete environments. Navy's NCIS and some Air Force flight crews were also issued M11s, instead of the bulkier Beretta. By around 2022, the Air Force OSI described its SIG M11s as aging weapons needing renewal. Under the 2010 Modular Handgun System program, the M9 and M11 will be phased out in favor of the SIG XM18 and 17 variants. Mark 23 Offensive Handgun Weapon System. In August 1991, SOCOM formally issued a requirement for an offensive handgun weapon system, an initial procurement of only 1,950 units, adding $2.3 million. This concept departed from viewing the pistol as purely defensive or last resort. The offensive handgun weapon system specs called for a 45 ACP handgun with exceptional accuracy and reliability, plus a detachable sound suppressor and integrated laser aiming module to enable effective engagement with suppressed firepower. SOCOM's goal was equipping elite units like Navy SEALs and Army Special Forces with a pistol capable of offensive operations, sentry elimination, or close-quarter battle, where a quiet, hard-hitting handgun might be advantageous. Under a 1994 contract, H&K and Colt were selected to develop prototypes and compete. Colt's design, based on the M1911 frame, suffered from chronic barrel cracking around 20,000 to 23,000 rounds, and Colt also dealt with bankruptcy of the laser supplier during testing. After extensive testing, H&K's design was chosen and entered production as the Mark 23 Mod 045 offensive handgun. Delivered to SOCOM starting in 1996 as a complete system, the pistol itself, with 12-round magazine of 45 ACP, a screw-on suppressor, and rail-mounted laser aiming module. The weapon demonstrated service life over 30,000 rounds and could consistently place 5 rounds into a 2-inch group at 25 meters. The Mark 23 was the first 45 caliber handgun adopted by U.S. military since the M1911A1, marking a return to that caliber for the first time in half a century. But in field use, the Mark 23 proved extremely robust, yet had a major drawback: oversized dimensions and weight. Operators found it somewhat cumbersome to carry concealed or as a secondary weapon, earning a reputation for being massive. Many special operators ultimately preferred smaller pistols, like 9mm SIGs or later H&K USP variants for everyday carry. Joint Combat Pistol Program. In the mid-2000s, after years of mixed feedback on the M9's 9mm effectiveness in combat, the Department of Defense initiated another search for a new sidearm. The Joint Combat Pistol Program launched in late 2005 as collaboration between SOCOM and the Army. It merged two efforts, the Army's Future Handgun System Initiative and SOCOM's desire for a new .45 pistol. The driving factors included reports from Iraq and Afghanistan highlighting desire for greater stopping power. Long story short, after 9/11, Special Forces brought back the M1911 because they didn't trust the M9 pistol or 9mm bullet to stop enemies well. Many soldiers liked the older .45 caliber 1911 because it felt more powerful and familiar. Around 2003, they were given some rebuilt World War II-era M1911 pistols and used them in Iraq and Afghanistan. The JCP solicitation issued by SOCOM in 2005 specified a non-developmental, commercially available .45 ACP pistol with two configurations, one with external manual safety, one without. Key requirements included integrated Picatinny rail for mounting lights and lasers, day and night sights, enhanced durability, and suppressor capability. Initially, the Army and SOCOM together envisioned buying up to 645,000 pistols to replace the M9 across the board. Facing budgetary and political pushback, the JCP program was dramatically scaled down in March 2006. The Army withdrew from the program, leaving it to Special Operations. The program's name changed to Combat Pistol, and total quantity sought reduced to around 50,000. Even this downsized effort didn't survive long. Later in 2006, DoD officials indefinitely suspended the Combat Pistol program, citing shifting priorities. No contract award was made. The Joint Combat Pistol Initiative became a false start. Colt M45A1. While JCP was faltering, the U.S. Marine Corps undertook its own niche pistol program. The Marine Corps had a long tradition of using M1911 pattern .45 pistols in certain units. By the late 2000s, with MARSOC's establishment and force recon expansion, demand for reliable .45 caliber pistols exceeded supply of maintainable old guns. In 2012, after competitive evaluation, Marine Corps Systems Command awarded Colt Defense a 5-year IDIQ contract to produce the M45A1 Close Quarter Battle Pistol. The contract allowed up to 12,000 pistols. Initial orders were around 4,000 at a value of $22.5 million. Colt's winning entry was essentially a modernized M1911A1, a single-action .45 caliber handgun with stainless steel frame with bottom rail, desert tan Cerakote finish, night sights, and dual recoil system. Fielded beginning in late 2012, the M45A1 served with MARSOC Raiders and Recon Marines, particularly in Afghanistan, where its knockdown power and ruggedness were valued. Marines reported improved accuracy and confidence, though it was heavier and held 7 to 8 rounds per magazine versus the higher capacity M9. A few years later, MARSOC decided to transition to a 9mm Glock, but the M45A1 continues to be used within the Marine Corps in limited roles. Think about that for a moment. They finally found something, but still can't find the perfect balance. This just pushes the military to invest indefinitely to develop newer weapons, and if they don't like it, they ditch it and move on to the next. Some Spec Ops units transitioned to Glocks with limited adoption. By mid-2010s, it finally received official approval in at least one corner of U.S. military. In February 2015, the Marine Corps issued a service-wide message authorizing Marine Corps Forces Special Operations Command personnel to carry the Glock 19 as alternative to standard-issue pistols. The adoption was limited. Only Marines in Special Ops units were allowed to use the Glock, and it didn't replace the M9 or M45A1 corps-wide. However, it acknowledged many operators preferred the Glock 19 for its advantages, lighter weight and smaller profile than the M9 or M45A1, greater magazine capacity than 1911-based .45s, and reputation for extreme reliability under adverse conditions. Why are cops all over the country using Glocks, but somehow the military has been so on and off about making it a standard pistol? Glocks function with minimal lubrication in mud, sand, cold, and other harsh environments. The Glock's polymer frame also resists corrosion, useful for maritime special operations units. By the mid-2000s, while conventional troops still carried Beretta M9s, an Army Green Beret or Marine Raider on deployment might instead carry a Glock 19 obtained through SOCOM supply channels. M17 and M18, the modular handgun system. This is controversial because of its safety problem. After the aborted JCP effort, the quest for an M9 replacement was revived around 2010 under a more comprehensive initiative. The Modular Handgun System program was launched by the Army in 2015 to finally procure a 21st-century service pistol for all U.S. military branches. The push for replacement was driven by the M9's age, over 30 years in service, and even some civilian guns are way more advanced than the M9. Army PEO called the M9 dated, citing poor ergonomics, lack of modularity, and limited support for modern accessories. Field feedback consistently called for adjustable grip sizes, improved sights and night sights, integrated mounting for lights and suppressors, and compatibility with newer, more effective ammunition. The MHS program didn't mandate a specific caliber. It invited industry to suggest the best solution, whether in 9mm, .40, 45 ACP, or otherwise. The emphasis was on a modular design, adaptable to multiple roles, a full-size handgun for general use, and a compact version for concealed carry by officers, air crews, etc. The Army issued the MHS request for proposals in August 2015. Over the next year, 12 companies submitted 9 different pistol designs. The Army's rigorous evaluation included firing tests, reliability and durability assessments to 25,000 rounds, accuracy checks, and survivability with new hollow-point ammunition. By January 2017, a winner emerged. Sig Sauer's P320 modular pistol, configured to Army specifications, was awarded the contract. On January 19, 2017, the Army announced a 10-year agreement with Sig Sauer worth up to $580 million to produce the new handguns and accessories. The winning pistol comes in 2 sizes, XM17 full-size and XM18 compact. Both are striker-fired 9x19mm pistols, featuring a removable chassis system where a serialized frame can be swapped between full or compact grip modules. They have integrated military standard 1913 accessory rails, ambidextrous controls, and interchangeable grip panels for different hand sizes. They also have external safety per DoD requirements and tritium night sights standard. During testing, soldiers gave the SIG modular handgun system extremely positive reviews, but not sure how the self-firing issue was never discovered until they were fielded by law enforcement. 100% of those in a spring 2017 test group agreed it was a major improvement over the M9 in terms of comfort, ergonomics, and shootability. The M17 and 18 began fielding in November 2017, with the 101st Airborne Division being the first Army unit to receive it. The rollout plan spans a decade, with the MHS contract having a total potential value cap of $580 million over 10 years. This marks the highest handgun spending, and it wasn't a smooth transition either, ultimately distributing over 200,000 pistols to the Army and additional quantities to Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps. The M17 replaces the Beretta M9 in Army and Air Force service. In choosing the SIG, the military retained 9mm as the caliber for its standard sidearm, but with new special-purpose jacketed hollow-point ammo available for improved terminal performance when needed. But the safety concern of the gun remains an engineering challenge. Normally, a gun can't just go off on its own unless the trigger is pressed. Investigations and demonstrations suggest that factors like the slide and frame having too much up and down play, coupled with slight trigger movement, can cause the sear to release the striker. Even a millimeter of movement past the trigger's pre-travel can be enough in some cases, like in a tight holster. It's crazy to see a gun that finally won the contract to replace the M9, but an average gun may be a way better option than an unsafe and overly engineered gun that can kill the confidence and peace of mind of those carrying it. If you like this content, please subscribe and comment on which military program you think is actually worth your tax dollars.